I'm unsure where I want to go with this double page layout. I have my pictures printed. I kind of have an idea of what papers I want to use. So let's go ahead and dive in and see how this turns out. First of all, I printed my photos. So I just printed a few different sizes. I did mostly 3x4s. So I have 8 of those. 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 of those. And then I have 4 2x2s, 2 4x4s, and then a 4x6. So I just printed my main pictures a little bit larger, my storytelling photos a little bit smaller, and I like these, but they're not my focal photos as 3x4s. While I'm looking at these, it's at a winery. There's a lot of greens. So my first instinct was this paper. It looks elegant. It reminds me of winery. It has the green for the grapes, but I don't want to use a whole lot of this. It'll just wash my photos out because so much green. So I need to bring in some other colors and use this very sparingly. So I'm looking at my photos, and my husband and I are both wearing kind of this teal color. So I brought in some Seabrook from Close to My Heart. This is a Close to My Heart color. And then I found some Seabrook embellishments as well. Some of these are from the Honey Bunny collection. Some of these are from the Skylark collection. So the background of this strip, I don't know if you can tell, has a little bit of that Seabrook, but then there's some limeade, it looks like, mixed in with that. And this is from Honey Bunny. So then I thought, well, maybe I can bring in some of that limeade. There are different shades of green in here, so maybe that would work. Okay, so then I brought out some embellishments in that limeade color. And I found these in my stash, which kind of remind me of, like this says Paris, and just kind of reminds me of winery type feel. So then I'm thinking maybe I can bring in some tans, grays, to go along with these embellishments. So then I pulled out some shortbread. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can bring in some shortbread. It helps bring out that gold foiling. I can bring in some of the Seabrook. I do want to layer. I know for sure that I want layers and layers of paper. And one thing I want to challenge myself with for this layout is to do something different on either side. Usually I have linear and I have kind of the same layout, just reverse. I do that a lot. So I want to challenge myself to maybe do linear on this side, vertical on this side, or not have my pages completely matching, but have them coordinating. So far I have Seabrook, shortbread from Close to My Heart, and then this Stampin' Up paper. This will be linked down below. It's gorgeous. You've seen me use the red one on a different layout, which happened to be at a winery as well. I did grab some scarlet cardstock as well, trying to bring in some darker tones, but spoiler, I don't end up using that. I was looking at that gold foil and thought I could bring in some gold foil from the Nature Sweetness collection. So this has those stitch marks. On the back are these florals. So then I thought I could bring in a little more white, lighten it up, bring in the white since I printed these with a white border. So that would bring in even more white. So I have quite a collection of papers here that I don't know if I'll bring them all in, but I do want a lot of paper layers. So I'm going to try to incorporate these. I think they'll tie into my photos nicely. And we're just going to start cutting. I don't know where this layout's going to go. So my first thought is a linear layout over here with 3x4s. And then maybe doing some kind of collage or something with these 4x4s and 4x6. Maybe something like that. I could have my title up here, my journaling. I could do a flip flap with these. So we could do something like that. I did have scraps of the shortbread. I have not cut these to any specific sizes. This one happens to be a 10 by 10. I must have gutted that from another project. So I could do something like that. This one happens to be a 6 by 12. So I could do something like this. And I don't know which pictures I would want in the flip-flaps, if I even want flip-flaps. So already I'm starting to do something a little bit different with my layout than I typically would. Typically, if I did a, 6 by 12 going across here, I would just continue it on. But making this a 10 by 10 and this a 6 by 12, that's already making my layouts feel a little different, which I am liking. So I could trim this down. I could bring this in as another layer and have that come, maybe there. And then to divide this or add a little trim piece, I could bring this in. I also have these stickers. Those could work as a trim to separate the shortbread from this pattern paper. And I have that other one that could come down below. Here's where I'm at so far. So I just kind of laid this out and I thought maybe I could do a smaller title here, or I could find a different home for these and go back to this kind of style and then have maybe part of my title here, part of my title here, room for embellishments. I did cut this one down a little more. So this one's a 4 by 12 piece. And then this one was 10 by 10, and I cut it down to 9.5 by 10. Just so that I could layer more of my other papers and not have so much of the shortbread color showing. Okay, so something like that. And then over here, I have the other 4 by 4. And then I'm wanting to cut this one down. And so maybe 1.5 peeking out over here, and then I can reserve or save this paper and just have maybe a couple inches showing down here. So this comes down to the 4.5 mark, so I could come down maybe 2.5 or even 2. Maybe 2. I think that might look good. So I'll have 1, 2.5, and 1.5. I'll go ahead and cut those strips. So here's the 2.5, here's the 1.5, and then I have this piece that I could bring over onto this side somehow. I've cut a few more papers. So this one I trimmed 7 by 10. And that one I'll put behind both of these because I want my pattern paper, oh wow, I'm making a mess. I want my pattern paper to be the focal, so I don't want to hide, either of these two pieces behind this one. And then over here, I cut this one just 1 inch and then 1 inch down here. And I'll have that showing. I'm not sure how much I'll have showing out from under the shortbread. And then this one, I thought I could just do a very thin strip just to bring that same pattern paper over to this side, because what you do to one side, you should do to the other so that they coordinate nicely. So I think I'll just trim another inch, 2 1-inch pieces, and then I can just show however much that I want. So I'm going to do that. I could cut these down too since, well, this one is already cut down, but I could cut this one down as well since so much of it's hidden behind here. So I'm just going to do some rough measurements. And I have about 2.5 showing here and about 3 showing here. So I think I'm just going to cut 2 3-inch pieces, and then again I can tuck them where I need to. I'm thinking I want to do some treatment to this Seabrook paper. So I have one of Stampin' Up's embossing folders. This is the Distress Tile 3D embossing folder. Can you see that detail? Isn't that so cool? So I'm going to use this, and I may need to run it through a couple times. So luckily this pattern doesn't go, in one direction. I can run it through a couple times, but This is going to be tucked under too, so I'm going to run this through and see if I can just tuck that. This folder is 6 inches, and then if I need to, I can just flip this around and run it through again. I'm going to do that to all 4 of these pieces. I am going to use some toffee ink, and I'm going to ink around both of these. So I have my little foam dauber here. While I'm inking around these papers, I thought maybe I'd tell you a little bit about the photos I'm documenting today. My husband and I went to a winery about an hour away to harvest grapes. So we got up before the sun. I will get up before the sun for wine. We got up early. We drove about an hour to this winery, and they fed us donuts and orange juice, and then we went out to the vines to start harvesting. We were harvesting Brianna grapes. We were out there for about 4 hours, and then we went back in, and this winery has wood fire pizzas. In exchange for our labor, we were fed pizza, given a glass of wine, and then we got to take home a bottle of their Brianna wine. It was definitely worth getting up before the sun. I would do the grape harvesting again. I love how this embossing folder turned out. I'm just inking around all of these pieces. You can kind of see how the ink accents that embossing as well. This would be a fun technique if you wanted to accentuate the embossing. You could run some ink over the whole piece of paper rather than just along the edges like I am. Before I ran these through my embossing machine, I did take just a little bit of water and spritz it very lightly, and it helps run it through, especially my machine. It's a very old embossing machine. It is not a Stampin' Up! One, and it runs really hard through there. Spraying it with a little bit of water, it helps to run through my machine, I've noticed. So obviously if it's too hard, don't force it. You can break your machine. I decided to try flipping this sheet of paper over vertically, so it was gonna go along like this, but then I'm like, well, what if I go like this? And then I could do like a smaller font title there. Maybe bring my 2x2s in and maybe do something like that. But I had already cut and embossed all of these, so let's see how that would play out. So if we did something like this still, these pieces just have, or maybe I could go all the way up to the top with that one, and then I don't know if I like that coming out from that side, so maybe I'll have to do something like that. That looks pretty good, and that gives me more real estate for my, I am struggling. That gives me more real estate for my photos too, to be able to put them like that. Okay, so let's set this aside. And I was kind of looking, and I think this was about 3 inches in. And then if I just show maybe a 1/2 inch of that one. Let's bring this back in. So then have that at about 2 1/4. Okay, I think that'll work. All of this is adhered. I got these pictures adhered, and then there's gonna be a flip flap over the top of this one. So my husband will be on top there, and then me eating my donut. Let's lay these photos back out. This one has a lot of branches up in that corner, so I can layer that one underneath. I won't be hiding anything. And then this one of myself, I'm kind of more angled to the right anyways. This is a little bird nest, and when I was harvesting, I spooked them and they jumped out. They couldn't fly yet, the little babies, and so they jumped out and they like were all over like little jelly beans spilling out, so I hope they're okay. We also saw a mouse running across the branches. I wish I could have gotten a picture of that. That was kind of cool. It just ran right across the vine. I did use an alphabet die cut to cut out harvest up at the top there. I'm planning on adding an embellishment cluster right down here. I just wanted to have my title laid out so I could determine where my photos needed to be placed. I'm going to add some treatment to my letters, so I'm using that same embossing folder, and I'm just going to open that up and this side is the top side, the side with the Stampin' Up. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of ink. This is scary. I've never done this before, but I've watched a ton of videos, so I'm basically a professional, right? So I'm just adding some ink here. That's probably way too much, but I can always punch out more of these. And then I'm just going to place these on here. And I'm making sure that the top is down towards it. And then I'm just going to shut this and run it through my embossing machine. And this is what it looks like. Let me find my tweezers here. I like the tan in the grooves, but I definitely used way too much ink. I don't like how much tan is on these. I'm going to die cut more letters, respell harvest, clean the ink up off of this embossing folder, and then I'm just going to use very, very little ink. All right, this is so much lighter. So what I ended up doing was inking it and then wiping the ink off. So the ink was off the surface, but it was in the crevices, if that makes sense. So I like how that looks better. It just adds a tiny little bit of that toffee. So let's go ahead and adhere these using our Barely Art glue. And I just want to line the H up and center it there. I think I have a new favorite embossing folder. I really like this one. I've had it for a while, but I just never got around to using it. I have this So Happy When We're Together, and that does kind of match this green. It brings in another shade of that green, so I'm thinking that could go there. And then I have a few of those tags, and I wanted to bring out some of that limeade color. So what if we brought those maybe over here? I'm going to remove the adhesive off of them so I can play around with them a little bit. And I still like that, so let's go ahead and add these stickers. And I'm going to go right in the middle so that I can see some of that toffee and inking below it. I have these 3 banners, so I could do here, here, and here. And then I have the Cherished. I got my embellishments down. I popped some of them up on 3D foam tape. A lot of them are flush. And then, yeah, I just kind of played around with the embellishments that I had. These are all from the sticker sheets and then these chipboard pieces. I'll be adding the date here on this tab. I love how my title turned out. Here's a closer look. I added some enamel dots in those coordinating colors. So this one accents this paper, and then we have some of the lighter browns to accent that, some darker greens to kind of coordinate that. And here's that cluster. I'm thinking I'll add my journaling down here, or I could print it on Avery Clear shipping labels and adhere it down right here. So I do still need to add my journaling, but I think I accomplished my goal of doing 2 different layouts, not having them coordinate, or they're coordinating. I used all the same papers and whatnot and embellishments, but they're not mimicking each other. It's not this strip going all the way across like I normally would. So I enjoyed this challenge. I think it turned out great. What do you guys think? I love how the sun poking through here is like mimicking this kind of embossing behind it. I hope this inspired you to use things in a different way. I have so many different collections going on. I have Honey Bunny, I have Skylark, I have Season of Elegance, Nature's Sweetness, and then this was from the Cosette collection from Close to My Heart. So I have so many different collections going on in this layout, and I think I brought them together okay. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, I'd love to have you join my community. There will be still shots over on my Instagram and Facebook, so be sure to follow me over there. I'll just go ahead and get my flip flap placed on there and get my journaling on, and we'll add this to the book. Until next time, live a life worth scrapping. Bye, guys.